Welcome back to 360 Sports Network. I'm Greg, the Mad Scientist Bashiro, and with me today is James Dotson and Alex DeLaverson. Gentlemen, how are you today?
I'm doing well out here. I'm ready for football to get going again, and that just means one thing. I'm ready for some fantasy football. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes. How about you, Alex?
I'm ready for fantasy football to begin, too. I'm even looking forward to preseason football. I mean, that lockout was driving me crazy. Did definitely have some, health effects on my mind, that lockout, but I'm ready to get going on football and see how things work out this year.
Oh, yes. And speaking about football, we have a very, very crazy free agency happening out there at this particular time frame. We have the Hall of Fame game has been canceled, which means that whatever games and whatever preseason we've got going on here right now, we're going to be looking at a lot of evaluation of talent, both in the preseason games as well as in camp. So don't be surprised if you see some interesting play formations happening in preseason, just to see the talent and the abilities of some of the new free agents as well as the rookies that have come on board with many of these teams. With that said, though, we're going to talk a little bit about quarterbacks in this particular podcast. Future podcasts, we're going to be talking about running backs and wide receivers, respectively. So with that said, let's talk about our top 10 quarterbacks this year going in the 2011-2012 season. James, what do you see out there?
Well, I see a pretty obvious 1-2 punch here with Aaron Rodgers and Mike Vick. You can take your pick. Either one would be a great top quarterback for the year. I'd prefer Aaron Rodgers just because he had a roster full of injuries last year, and yet he still put up great numbers en route to a Super Bowl. And you always have that little bit of a worry with an injury with Mike Vick. But I just look at his numbers last year with 60 yards rushing average on the ground and over 200 yards every week for the last 8 games of the year. So coordinators couldn't figure him out after an entire year. I don't think they're going to do much after a shortened off-season with nobody in camp until late July. After him, I have Peyton Manning 3, Tom Brady number 4. I don't think he'll be quite as good with Ocho Cinco as he was with the Randy Moss 2007 days. He won't put up 50 touchdowns, but I think 40 is not out of the question. And then Drew Brees rounds out my top 5. I just think there were too many interceptions for him last year, so he stays out of the top 3 or 4. But having a little bit of help in the ground game this year might be able to help get Brees a little bit of slack for this year and make him a top 5 option.
That's interesting. Alex, who do you have as your top 5 right now?
Yeah, I have Aaron Rodgers at number 1. I think that's a no-brainer. Michael Vick at number 2. Although, if we were sure Vick would stay healthy for all 16 games, I wouldn't even mind putting him up there at number 1. But, he runs so much, he can get hurt at so easily any point of the season. I have Peyton Manning at number 3. Dallas Clark will be back. Austin Collie will be back. And Reggie Wayne is still one of the best wide receivers in the game. So I think we should expect another 4,000-yard and 30-touchdown season. And I have Tom Brady at number 4. He finished 2010 as a top 3 fantasy quarterback on his way to an MVP campaign, and he now has a new weapon to work with Chad Ochocinco. Although, like Dotson said, I don't think it'll be 2007, but I think it will be a very good season. And I have Drew Brees at number 5. I do expect more run plays called, but this offense isn't going to skip a beat with Darren Sproles replacing Reggie Bush as a pass catcher. So that's my top 5.
Yeah, you know what? I think we're all in a unanimous agreement here about 1 and 2 with Aaron Rodgers and Michael Vick. You can almost call them 1 and 1A. Aaron Rodgers seems to have a simpatico relationship with Greg Jennings and Jordy Nelson out there. And, of course, you have the aging Donald Driver, who's the venerable one, who he's always a go-to option there for Aaron Rodgers. Michael Vick, though, When I say 1 and 1A, you can actually interchange them, do whatever you want, but Michael Vick is going to have another tour de force year this year. They have speed burners beyond belief on this particular team. They've got a running back in the form of LaShawn McCoy, who can basically operate the underneath game and can actually go down the middle and actually catch a ball. He's got very soft hands, and this is a guy that can actually go and pick up large chunks of yardage. Sort of like the way the old Westbrook situation was out there. Westbrook leaves, goes out west, and LaShawn McCoy takes over, and it's going to be a fantastic year for Michael Vick, the way I look at things over here. Continuing on, though, with my number 3 person I have here is Philip Rivers. I might be going out here on a limb on this one here, but I really believe that Rivers' stats are going to skyrocket because of the Chargers' running game being in question right now. He has nowhere but to throw the ball and to advance his cause that way. So I really look at Philip Rivers putting the ball in the air probably another 5 to 10% more than he has been, and that's a conservative estimate. So I really see him padding his numbers and being a top 3 type fantasy quarterback. Drew Brees, you got to put him at number 4. The guy's consistent, and that's why I put him in the top 5. In the past 3 seasons, he's posted 2 34 touchdown seasons and 1 33 touchdown season. And as you said, with the addition of Darren Sproles out there, you definitely are going to have a running game and a guy that can actually catch the ball and can make things happen from a running back perspective. At number 5, of course, we have Tom Brady. Yes, the guy we all hate. You know, the guy that he's got a beautiful wife and an enchanted life, and my God, even his children are models right now. But the guy's a winner. And you got to expect another 30-plus touchdown season if he stays healthy. And that's the big thing, if he stays healthy. Keep him out of that walking boot. Keep Chad Ochocinco from telling him what to do, and keep him mentally healthy. And with Wes Welker on board with the underneath game, I really think Tom Brady's numbers are going to be superb this year. So that's my top 5. Let's round out the bottom end of the top 10. James, what do you got there?
I might be going out on a limb to start here with Matt Schaub at number 6. But he finished last year strong after a shaky start, and that's after losing Owen Daniels. So I'm looking for another 4,000-plus yard year for Matt Schaub, and especially if he has all of his targets there. And with Andre Johnson, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, you said Andre Johnson, and that's somebody you just can't ignore.
No, not at all. I mean, when you can have Owen Daniels stretch it out over the middle, too, I just think they can be throwing it as much as they want, especially even having Arian Foster, too. That can keep the defense honest, and you might have Andre Johnson going deep every other play. The rest of my top 10 is a bunch of the R's. We have at number 7, Matt Ryan. The stats speak for themselves for him. 3,700 yards, 28 touchdowns, and he had a bunch of games where they were up so big he barely threw in the second half. So with the running game in doubt and Julio Jones coming, I think Matt Ryan's a great pick there. Number 8, Tony Romo. He was having a great year before breaking his collarbone, and with a healthy Dez Bryant, and I'm looking for a 35 touchdown year out of Romo. Number 9, somebody who is a fantasy dream, Ben Roethlisberger. He holds the ball too long in the pocket, but when he does hold it too long and get sacked, he doesn't fumble. So the result is big plays when all appears lost, and even if he does get sacked, most leagues you don't lose points as a quarterback for getting sacked if you hold on to the ball, which he normally does. And rounding out my top 10 is Philip Rivers. I know you had him pretty high, Greg, I think number 3, but I'm not so hot on Rivers this year. He had a lot of yards, but he barely cracks my top 10, not knowing what Vincent Jackson is going to do, if he'll even be there. That's a moot point, though, because Rivers is just too inconsistent for my liking. He'll throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, but then the next game he'll throw for 150 yards and 3 interceptions. So I just don't like the inconsistency there. I think there's more consistent picks out there around this point to be able to take instead.
I'd have to differ with you
Schaub
on
and then
that.
Yars.
I'd have to differ with you on that one because he didn't have Vincent Jackson for much of last year either. But Alex, let's talk about your bottom half of the top 10 there.
Well, at 6, I have Matt Schaub. Arian Foster has taken, some of the luster off of Matt Schaub's fantasy value, but he was still one of only 5 quarterbacks to throw for over 4,000 yards in 2010, so I have him at number 6. I actually have Phillip Rivers at number 7. I don't expect another 4,700-yard season with 30 touchdowns from him. I expect more Ryan Matthews, and, losing Malcolm Floyd doesn't really help much either. At number 8, I actually have Matt Ryan. Ryan quietly finished as the eighth highest scoring fantasy quarterback in 2010, and adding Julio Jones to go with Roddy White and Tony Gonzalez only helps. I have Tony Romo at number 9. I think he will bounce back. He was having a good year, like Dawson said, before he got hurt. So I'm going to put him at 9. And number 10, I actually have Sam Bradford. I mean, there's no doubt he's a rising star in the NFL, and he's only still a year or two away from starting for being a starter on fantasy teams. He's going to learn a new offense this year. I think with the addition of Mike Sims-Walker, I think things are going to work really well for him out there.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that as well. My bottom 5 I've got going on here. Number 6, I've got Peyton Manning coming in at number 6. The old man Manning, fresh off his neck surgery, falls out of the top 5. Only because of his age and that he's showing a little bit of frailty, that he is a human, okay? He'll throw a pick every now and then, as what we've seen in some of the games last year, but I expect another 30-touchdown season out of him. Matt Schaub I have at number 7. I have to agree with everything that Dotson has said about Matt Schaub. The guy's a brilliant passer. He's got the top receiver in the game in Andre Johnson. Expect at least 29 touchdowns out of him this year and a bunch of yards, provided that he stays healthy. Matt Schaub has a tendency to catch the injury bug about week 3, week 4 of the season there. So if Schaub stays healthy and can play the entire season, expect some big numbers there. Number 8, I've got Eli Manning. Now, this guy intrigues me. Eli is probably the Rodney Dangerfield of all the quarterbacks that are out there. Nobody respects him. But the guy, he's a top 10 quarterback. He had a 31-touchdown season last year. This was not a fluke. But he's also had 25 interceptions. That kind of puts him out of the top 5. But with 31 touchdowns with receivers like Manningham and Hakeem Nicks, this guy, you have Ahmad Bradshaw in the backfield there. This guy is going to put a fantastic number of points up there. So I have him at number 8. Tony Romo I have at number 9. And once again, he was having a solid 2010 season when he broke his collarbone in week 6. But he's going to have all his weapons. He should have at least a 28-touchdown season if he stays healthy. And I think the mental aspect of Tony Romo has been solidified because he did get married to a TV reporter. So we're not going to have one of the Simpson girls out there in the stands distracting him. So I think we're going to be fine there.
That's too bad for all the fans.
Oh, I know. I mean, we were just loving the fact when they were cutting to the stands to see, which Simpson was that?
Jessica,
thank you. Let's say Ashley, but Ashley is married to Pete Wentz, so whatever. And number 10, I got Matt Ryan, Matty Ice. The guy threw for 28 touchdowns last year with only 9 interceptions. And the reason why I don't have him higher than number 10 is because they get ahead by so many points, they fall asleep the second half, and they don't put anything else up. And that can be problematic for a fantasy football owner. The other thing, too, is Tony Gonzalez is diminishing skills. But you have Julio Jones out there. You have Roddy White out there. So if they can just kind of spread it out a little bit more, I think Matt Ryan, now this is a conservative figure with him being at number 10, but he could be a top 5 quarterback. But I have him in the top 10 position there. The last five for the top 15. Who do you have there, James?
This is where it starts getting interesting. We're all pretty much the same sort of mindset for the top 10. This is where we're going to start seeing some differing names, I think. I start with Sam Bradford at 11. Just simply the lack of targets is what will keep him out of the top 10. But Alex, you said it right. Sims Walker will help. I think give it one more year, get him one more good target, and we're going to be seeing another version of the greatest show on turf. And he could get close to 3,500 or even 4,000 yards this year very easily. Number 12, I have Matt Castle. He's the type of quarterback that could be still available here in the last rounds of your draft, but he's also the kind of type that could win you the championship of your league. With only one target last year, he still put up 22 touchdowns. You add Baldwin to Dwayne Bowe out there, and you can see those numbers go up. So look for Castle in the late rounds if you still need a quarterback to still be available. Number 13, I'm looking at Kevin Kolb. You're going to be hearing Kolb to Fitzgerald all year long, and Fitzgerald pretty much got to pick who he would want as his quarterback, and he picked Kevin Kolb for a reason. You're going to be hearing good things out in Arizona for them. Number 14, you're not going to like this one, Greg. This is where Eli Manning comes in for me. He can go out. I'll watch him throw 3 touchdowns on his first 3 passes in the first 3 possessions, but then he'll throw 5 interceptions the rest of the game. Just, again, too inconsistent. I want my quarterback to be consistent and put up solid points all year, not a 30-point week followed by a 2-point week. So I'll take a couple other guys around at this point, and Eli Manning will drop down in the ranks for me. And then rounding out my top 15 is Matthew Stafford, but I got to put a disclaimer on this. Do not blame me if and when Matthew Stafford gets injured, because he is a great quarterback, but he just cannot last a season. If he does, he'd put up 25 to 30 touchdowns. But again, that's if he stays healthy.
I think there's 5-1 odds in Vegas on Stafford getting injured this year, so...
You know what? I'll take it just because you never know what can happen in Detroit. We've seen crazier things out there.
Oh, yes. Alex, how about you on your bottom 5?
Well, I have Matt Castle at number 11. I like the addition of Jonathan Baldwin. He's going to be working with Dwayne Bowe there. Castle, he's a legit fantasy option. He can pull off some great things there in Kansas City, so I'm going to put him at number 11. At number 12, I actually have Eli Manning. He always slips in fantasy drafts, and his starting fantasy, but he is still starting fantasy quarterback material. So I have number 13, I actually have Josh Freeman. He was vastly underrated in 2010. I mean, Freeman isn't going to fly under anyone's radar in 2011. He's a dual threat on a young and upcoming offense. At number 14, I actually have Joe Flacco. He is a nice value pick in the middle rounds, and Derek Mason is gone unless he signs, for less money. But Flacco will still get his numbers. And number 15, I actually have Kevin Kolb. I think it's a pretty good fit there, him and Fitzgerald. I think they could turn out to be a great tandem there. He's finally with Arizona with a fat new contract, and he's a starter too. I mean, let's not get crazy, but he'll be a good middle round option if you need a quarterback. So that rounds up my last 5.
Yeah, he's a good look out in Arizona. He doesn't have anybody in front of him or behind him to have to worry about, and I think that's what's going to allow him to be free and allow him to throw the ball often and throw it well.
My bottom 5 here, to round out the top 15, I have Joe Flacco coming at number 11. He posted 25 touchdowns last year, and with only 10 interceptions. He'll have the services of Anquan Boldin, but he will not have Todd Heap, nor will he have Derek Mason. And, of course, Willis McGahee has gone to greener pastures as well. Joe Flacco is a work in process, though, and I look at him as a very strong top-tier number 2 type quarterback itself. His mechanics can be a bit questionable. Yeah, he will throw the INT ball, especially when you have Troy Polamalu out there just waiting for it. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there with Flacco. If he can get his mechanics down, he can go much higher. But you can't deny his yardage that he's posted and his 25 touchdowns as well. I have Sam Bradford coming in at number 12. Mike Sims Walker is one of the reasons why I have him at number 12. Plus, 18 touchdowns in his rookie season. Here's a guy fresh out of college, put him right in, no shame, start him out, 18 touchdowns rookie season. The guy's poised. He's poised in the pocket as well as in the field, off the field. I mean, the guy's just a class act. If there's anybody that can be a clone of Peyton Manning, it's Sam Bradford. And I see a big future there. So for a guy who's a second-year player to become in the top 15, I think that speaks volumes there. Ben Roethlisberger I have at number 13. Big Ben is what I call the silent assassin. Sorry, Heinz Ward, I kind of took your moniker away from you and gave it to Big Ben there. But he gets the job done without a whole lot of fanfare. Now, here's the thing about Big Ben. He did a lot of things this year. He took a team to the Super Bowl. He rehabbed his image, and he missed 4 games. And in the process of doing that, he threw for a heap of yards, and he posted 17 touchdowns with 5 interceptions. So, with that said, plus you have all your tools coming back there. You have Heinz Ward, Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is out for 3 weeks right now, and he has a brief injury at this particular time of our recording here, but he'll be back. I'm anticipating 27 touchdowns this year coming out of Big Ben. He's a brawler. He loves the physical aspect of the game, so that's why I'm at 13. Number 14, got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Much to a lot of people's surprise. Under the watchful eye of Chan Gailey, this guy has become a no-frills quarterback. This guy, however, is extremely intelligent. He's a Harvard grad. Plus, he's got Stevie Johnson out there as his wide receiver. Stevie, who blames God for missing a touchdown throw. But you know what? The guy's very talented. And the Buffalo Bills are slowly putting it back together again, and I expect some nice yardage coming out of Fitzpatrick himself. Let's see, that was number 14? And, of course, number 15. I have Matt Stafford at number 15 only because of the fact that when he's healthy, there's nobody better out there. Plus, he's got Calvin Johnson out there to throw to. But here's the other thing, too. You can't deny Kevin Kolb his due. And you can actually put Kevin Kolb in at 15A, and you can actually put Matt Castle in at 15B, and you can put Josh Freeman in at 15C. If you
who else you want to include in there? You want to go all the way down to John Kitna still?
You know what? 15C. No, but really, I mean, there's not a whole lot of separation there between these 3 guys, but the odds for Stafford to get injured this year are actually greater than for him to actually finish the entire season, and which is sad, obviously, but Stafford has brought Detroit back. There's a new excitement up there, but if you get Stafford, make sure you have a strong number 2 quarterback in the mix because he will be injured.
At one point or another. And you said it, though. You can have a 15 A, B, C, and D because there are so many quarterbacks around that point where you can take one, you can take another. One could fall flat on his face, and you would have no reason to predict it. Another one would skyrocket to the top, and you'd have no reason to predict that either.
Yeah, I think there is a big gap after the 10th best quarterback. There is definitely some talent differential there. So, I mean, I think 10 all the way down to 32. It could be all very subjective. 15 to 32, let's say. But I had Josh Freeman and Kevin Kolb at 13 and 15. And after that, I really don't see anyone else that can necessarily come up and be a playmaker. I do think Stafford is pretty good. I don't know if I'll say there's no one better out there when he's healthy, but he is pretty good.
Moving along here, who's the biggest sleeper pick here of all the ones that we've talked about here? Who do you believe is the guy that's going to be overlooked, but is going to go the furthest?
I would probably put my money on Matt Ryan just because his numbers aren't that spectacular because his team was so far in the lead last year. And with Turner getting older, they're going to need to be throwing it more in the 3rd and 4th quarter. So I just see Matt Ryan putting up numbers that you haven't seen from him before, especially with the addition of Julio Jones down there.
Interesting. How about you, Alex?
Josh Freeman. I really think he's going to be one of the premier quarterbacks. I mean, 3,451 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. With 364 rushing yards is pretty good. So I only expect him to get better. He has Mike Williams there, and let's not forget the great Kellen Winslow either here, fellas. And also someone I think we forgot about, if Tim Tebow doesn't take over the starting quarterback position, I think Kyle Orton could be very good. I think Brandon Lloyd is an excellent receiver. I had both of those guys on my fantasy team last year, and they just propelled me into the playoffs, even though I lost in the championship game. Kyle Orton has the potential, if he's playing, to be very, very good.
You know what, Alex does have a point there, though, with Kyle Orton. You have a new coach out there in Denver with John Fox, and Kyle Orton could actually put some numbers up. I stress the could aspect.
I'd put him as a starter. I don't necessarily see Tim Tebow as a pro-style quarterback necessarily. I mean,
no, I definitely have to say that Kyle Orton went over Tim Tebow in that one. Although, with the Brendan Lloyd connection out there, I think, you might be onto something. As far as my sleepers go, I'm between two sleepers, and to say that Matt Castle is a sleeper is like, huh? Matt Castle, a sleeper? You take a look at what he's done last season? Come on, Greg, are you on drugs or something, man? What's going on here? Really, though, I mean, with all that's been said here, Matt Castle and that whole Kansas City Chiefs team has a tendency to not get a whole lot of respect and a whole lot of media blitz. And as a result, he can get overlooked pretty quickly by the gaudy numbers that our top 10 have actually put up. But another guy that actually is a bit of a sleeper, Matt Schaub falls into that category from time to time, but Eli Manning. I've been at drafts where Eli Manning has actually gone to the 8th round. And it's like, this guy's way too good to let him go to the 8th round.
Well, I'll say, Greg, I mean, some people say, how is he a sleeper if you put him in your top 10 or even top 15? After the first 5 quarterbacks, I mean, pick 6 to 10, they could all be middle-round quarterbacks. But potential players like Eli Manning could be a good starter, especially if you're in a league that has 6 points for a touchdown, like our league, for example. So, I mean, for a league that maybe has 4 points, and maybe, you put him a little lower. But, like I said, the talent differential is so big, someone that falls between 6 and 10 in the top 15 quarterbacks could be considered a sleeper.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the biggest liability, the biggest risks out there. Out of this list that we've gone over, who are your biggest risks? And my God, I need to draft another quarterback right away if I get this guy.
Well, everybody who takes Peyton Manning needs to at least be a little bit cautious because we don't know how his neck's going to turn up. I'll tell you how it's going to turn up. He's going to start all 16 games, but still just be aware, be cautious. But my biggest risk as far as performance is Phillip Rivers. He just has never thrilled me on the field. I mean, his numbers are one thing, but when he is so inconsistent, I like a consistent, good scoring quarterback, which he is anything but. So for me, I just don't trust Rivers. Have a good backup because you might be wanting to ditch him pretty quickly.
Interesting. Alex, who are your risks?
For Ben Roethlisberger, I think he'll have a good, solid year. The thing is, typically, though, well, the only 2 times the Steelers won the Super Bowl in the last 25 years, they've had a hangover. I'm not saying that's necessarily going to be the case this year. I mean, they are more experienced. Well, the thing is,
made it.
I mean, I think he'll be good. I really think he will be good, but I don't think he'll be one of the top 15 fantasy quarterbacks. Maybe if they didn't go to the Super Bowl this year. Maybe if it was last year when they missed the playoffs or were barely in it. You got to be wary of Pittsburgh when they go to a Super Bowl. There's always a hangover. So even if it's not necessarily Ben's fault in terms of underperforming, maybe the rest of the team does. So that's enough to keep him out of my top 15. He'll have a good, solid year, but in terms of being a top 15 quarterback, only because of the hangover possibility, I kept him out. And I'm just not sold on Ryan Fitzpatrick. Just because he's a Buffalo quarterback, maybe that's why. I don't know what else to
respect up there.
I don't know really what else to say. I mean, I don't like to have a starting quarterback that plays for a bad team. I mean, even if they're a backup quarterback, that just completely turns me off them in that respect. I know Steelers necessarily aren't going to be a bad team, but like I said, I think that's a big risk. The Super Bowl hangover is a legitimate risk. It happens twice, so it could happen.
Let me argue that point real quick, though, because we've had and we've seen years where Jon Kitna has been the fantasy football championship quarterback because the Detroit Lions were always playing from 3 touchdowns behind, and thus he's getting garbage points in the last
But in
quarter.
general, though, I mean, I'm not going to say... go on, Greg.
I've won Super Bowls, fantasy football Super Bowls, with Jon Kitna as my leader.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, how many Jon Kitnas are out there? How many times does that happen? Not many.
Well,
I mean, I think...
and this year, if you don't get Rodgers or Vic, though, you're going to be looking at, and you're going to be seeing a lot of teams in the finals with their starting quarterback being a Matt Castle.
My biggest risks, looking at everything that we've talked about here right now, Matt Stafford. I think you need to take out an insurance policy with Lloyd's of London if you're going to go with him, because chances are he will get injured. And injuries are the biggest threats to having a good fantasy football season. And that's from a physical injury standpoint. Now, from a mental injury standpoint, Tony Romo. Tony Romo, ever since he lost that playoff game years ago and he sat there in disbelief, I felt bad for him. And ever since I saw, Miss Simpson out there staring earnestly out there with that vacant look and he fell apart, I felt bad for him. This is a guy, when he's on and he's good, he's awesome, but when he gets emotionally rattled or gets behind in a game, he falls apart, and he falls apart faster than a house of cards. With that said, if the Cowboys are having a great season, ride the wave. But if they're not, I'd be a little weary. I'd want to have somebody else out there to kind of pick up the pieces, because Tony Romo could cause you problems.
That's my quarterback. Don't talk about my quarterback like that.
That really is Dawson's quarterback, too. It really was.
Yeah, don't remind me about that Seahawks game. That was too much to handle.
It wasn't bad enough you had to use a T.O. reference.
Yeah, exactly. that tells you how bad it was.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I guess that just about does it here. We're fresh on our training camp edition here. We're going to be assessing the talent of running backs and wide receivers on our next podcasts. If you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, or you think we're just plain old just nuts, hey, let us know. We're posting this on Twitter, and we look forward to reading your Twitter responses. So from myself to all of you, have a great one.